I now found directions from Siri's.
Oh yeah?
I'm
So
pretty good.
let's
With
see.
Grandpa.
Today is Sunday, July 27th, I believe, 2014. Here at 39 South Pueblo Street with Grandpa Albert, Gilbert, Arizona, with Grandpa Carroll, Albert Carroll, Janet Carroll, Litster, David, Albert Carroll, and Eric Albert Litster. So, I was in town for Lake Powell, the Litster family trip to Lake Powell, and stopped by to see Grandpa Albert and wanted to ask him some questions about what life was like for my mom growing up and for her kids growing up, and kind of memories that Grandpa Albert has of my mom and her siblings. So, take it away.
You're going to have to ask some questions.
Yeah, so let me think on the fly here. So, my mom was born in Emmett. What was Emmett like when my mom and siblings were born? And what brought you guys to Emmett?
Was Emmett 3,000 when we arrived at 5,000? Anyway, Emmett was never bigger than 5,000 people when we lived in Emmett. And what brought us to Emmett was we had lived in southern Utah, and Dad wanted to get on a farm so he could work us boys, and also in Arterville nearly everyone was related, so he wanted to get where he could find some people for kids to marry that were not related. But anyway, we owned a mercantile store, Dad did, in Arterville. It was one that had been used in the United Arter, and he inherited it from, my dad inherited it from his dad, Frederick Carroll. That's how come he had the store. And we moved from Arterville in 1945. And Dad had gone up previously to Idaho to look for land. He went in eastern Idaho around, anyway, it was eastern Idaho. And it was too windy, too cold there, so he went into western Idaho, and he liked the climate there much better. Emmett is only about 2,000 feet, so it was quite, had the seasons, and didn't get extreme cold, got cold but not extreme. So he bought a farm there in at least Morgan for 80 acres. And I was thinking it was $20,000, which we ended up selling the store and having enough to pay for the farm. Anyway, in 45 we drove up there. Dad's brother had a big cattle truck, so he loaded everything up in it and hauled our belongings up there. So that's how we got to Emmett, Idaho.
And how many kids were in your family? So your dad and your mom and all your siblings went to Emmett from
Was
Orderville.
Jolene born in?
Wasn't Margaret and Clara May born in Emmett?
I was thinking Clara May was born in Panguitch because she was a blue baby.
Okay.
And I think Margaret would have been born. Do you remember David Margaret?
I'm thinking she was born in Emmett.
Okay, I kind of think that too. But, so there was 4 total after all born, was 4 boys and 4 girls,
Okay.
siblings.
And how old were you in 45 when you moved to Emmett?
I went my junior year at Valley High School and went my senior year in Emmett
So you graduated high school from Emmett High
after 1 year.
after 1 year. Okay.
And I never did felt it was my school. I never did go to any reunions
Yeah.
from Emmett. I did end up going to some in Valley High Orderville
Good.
family or high school reunions.
And did much family stay in Orderville? Like your dad and your family, immediate family, left.
Rulin and Elsie left.
Rulin and Elsie. Okay.
And us siblings, that's all it went up.
How many stayed? Like how many of your uncles and aunts stayed in Orderville?
Well, I had Uncle Henry and Aunt Minnie and Aunt Margaret, I think, that lived in Phoenix, Arizona at the time, and that was, and I had a lot of cousins
Gotcha.
who stayed in.
Okay. And so that's when you guys got to Emma, got the farm. And so did you, after you, I know that you went to Utah State, I believe. Is that right?
Before Utah State, I went into the military for 18 months, spent 15 months in Japan, and then after I got off my military service, I went on my mission, Central States mission,
And what states did you serve in?
Central States, Missouri and Kansas.
Missouri and Canada?
Kansas.
Oh, Kansas, okay. So
Missouri and Kansas.
So I didn't go to college till after I finished military and my mission.
Okay.
And what's interesting in military, even though I was in for 18 months, the GI Bill paid for all my tuitions and books. And it also saved money that my military paid for my mission.
So the pay he got from being in the military, he saved it and went on a mission with that money.
Gotcha.
And then he got the GI Bill and had 4 years of tuition and books
That's great.
from working 18 months.
And earned my board and room. I worked at the college cafeteria about 4 hours after a day. Paid 55 cents an hour then.
55 cents an hour.
And that's what's.
And Albert's military time was after the bombs were dropped and the war was over. Dad was there doing an office job during the Reconstruction. And it was a 9-to-5 job. And after being a farm boy, he thought a 9-to-5 job was a cushy life. So he did not see any. He did do basic training, boot camp. For 3 months you did training.
Well, I did it when I went into the service. We left Boise, went to Salt Lake, and from Salt Lake went to Fort Lewis, Washington, and did 7 weeks of basic training. And where else did I go? Oh, Fort Bragg. I did 7 weeks of basic training.
What state is Fort Bragg in?
In North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Was that when you tried out for the Army Band?
That would have been in Japan.
Okay.
Well, I think it was Japan. But we wouldn't settle down enough to do anything like that. But anyway, I was supposed to have 13 weeks of basic training. So in the States, I got 2 7 weeks. And from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, they shipped me all the way to Camp Stone in California, all the way across the States.
By train?
It'd be by train then.
Oh.
And Camp Stoneman is the point where I was shipped overseas to Japan
On a ship.
by ship.
How long did that take?
Well, we broke a record of the ship I was on. It took 8 days on the Pacific.
Wow, that's long.
And what's interesting, I went to bed Christmas Eve and woke up the next day. It was the day after Christmas. We'd crossed the international date line on
Oh yeah.
Christmas
You were
Eve.
gypped at Christmas.
I missed Christmas.
This Christmas.
They did have a little gift to give us
That's good.
the day after Christmas. But landed in Yokohama, which is near Japan, and I was shipped from
Is
there.
it Okinawa?
No, Yokohama.
Yokohama.
Oh, see, that's near Tokyo, or you said
Near That's where it shipped off.
Near Tokyo. Okay.
It was near Tokyo. And then was shipped all to the most southern island of Kyushu in a town called Kumamoto. And I was in the 21st Infantry Division Regiment. 21st, 90. And then is in a regiment. I forgot the regiment number.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, the division higher up, 34th, anyway. So I was in southern Japan on the island of Kyushu. That was 750 miles south of Tokyo. So going down, I went through the town of Hiroshima. Just from the train, we didn't stop. I could see the damage of the bomb.
What did it look like?
Just complete destruction. This big cement foundations are made out of cement. All that's left was the foundation of the wall, or cement walls,
Yeah.
steel tops. Buildings were bent. I also went to, what's the name of that one in southern?
The other bomb site.
Hiroshima.
Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Nagasaki.
Nagasaki. I got to go there while I was on base. It was about, maybe, I'm not sure, an hour or so train ride. I went alone by myself. I was going to go with my friend Howard, who joined the Army with me in Emmett, but he ended up couldn't go, and so I went by myself and spent the whole day walking around seeing the ruins. A little concerned, being just a year after the war was over.
So it was still radioactive.
It could have been. And just, but I did run into a school teacher whose face had been disfigured by the bomb, but he could speak English. And so I visited a little with him, but just by myself I walked around and looked at the ruins, spent the day there. I took with me some LDS literature that I had printed and just left some of it around.
Yeah.
But
Dad made his own missionary tracks.
anyway,
Nice.
I wrote to Salt Lake, or to Tokyo, and the mission was so new there, or the headquarters, they didn't have any literature to send me, so I just mimeographed some up myself and distributed it from that time, unless I'm on a base. Anyway, I had some books of Mormon
Yeah.
that I left in the library when I left it. And after I left, I got a letter from someone that had gotten a hold of the Book of Mormon in the library, and I don't remember his name, but anyway, I corresponded back to him, and the letter was returned. My unit that I left in Japan was the first ones into Korea soon after I left, and I just assumed he had been gone to the Korean War and was killed. I knew some of the people I knew in Japan were killed, and I knew somehow how I learned, I don't know. But anyway, I never did have any further correspondence with him about the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
But if I'd have been, when I left the military, I was a T4, Deck 4, which was equivalent to a sergeant, and most of them, a lot of them, signed up to reserve their ranking. I chose not to, and had I chose to stay in the reserve, I'd have been called right back to the Korean War. So that's how close I got to
Wow.
being sent over there. But I enjoyed the military. Dan said I had an office job that was just like a civilian job. And what made it even better to get all the racket and noise of getting up in the morning. I'd get up a little bit earlier and would go up to the college and study or do things up there. I got permission to do that.
Mm.
Did you take some college classes while you were there?
I took, yes. I got, actually my English 101 that you have to take when you go to college. I took that in Japan, so I didn't have to retake it when I went to Utah State.
Was it a correspondence course or was it a
A
classroom?
classroom. And I also took a dairy. I should have taken more levels that would have got college credit. I didn't realize, I guess, at the time. But I got at least 2 classes there that went towards credit. And also, I think being in the military gave me 6 credits, or 15 credits, when I went in Utah State.
What was the reaction like that when you were out, not when you were off the base talking to like the Japanese? What was their reaction towards America? And towards
What's interesting, I never did go off base, except 1 or 2 trips.
Okay.
I could have done, I didn't. We had a lot of Japanese working on base, doing repairs and things like that. Remember, all they had to eat was rice. And a lot of them was scavenger or throwaway food
That the Japanese people ate
that they would eat.
because they were very starved.
But in Japan, they had a small LDS group. At one time, it was around 15. And when I left, there was hardly any. They'd all gone home. I remember periods of time why they were, as far as the church is concerned, I was in charge of, one of the things I was in charge of was the Form 20, which had on one sheet both back and all the information you could think of about the soldier. Anyway, it had in there church preference, and if we were listed Mormon when we had going to church, some of them that didn't show up at church, we would go look them up.
Mm.
I remember going around and trying to get them active in our little group.
That's good.
Didn't you have a mission conference or a military church conference?
Our church group, at the time, ranking of a major was in charge of the group. And in Tokyo, they're going to have a big LDS conference. And he got permission to get us off the base to go up to Tokyo. So while Lara took that 1,500-mile round trip by train, that was the second time, third, fourth time I went through Hiroshima, the time I went back home. So anyway, all I remember of that is that they had a group of quite a number of little children sing the song, Jesus, I'll be a sunbeam for Jesus. They sang it in Japanese. That's the only thing I remember of the conference.
That's great.
And one other field trip we took, church group we took, was to an active volcano, Mount Oso. And it was active enough that they were shooting up boulders and stuff out of the volcano. We could get quite close to it.
Wow.
I think that's the only 2 things we did as a church group.
And so were you just in the notes? So you got drafted, or did you volunteer?
I volunteered.
Okay.
Dad had a friend, a high school friend named Howard Holman, and he had signed up. And so he sent Dad was at Rolling Hills Apples Orchard picking apples in the fall after he graduated from high school, and the recruiter came to the orchard and recruited Dad.
2 recruiters came, and Dad was, and I were picking apples. And after they give their talk, split, or whatever you want to call it, I asked Dad, what do you think? They'd explain the GI Bill and the benefits. I could go in for just 18 months. And Dad said, it sounds pretty good to me, so right on the spot we decided we'd join the Army. In 2 or 3 days we'd left. I left.
Oh, it was that fast. Now this Howard Holman, who sent the recruiters to Dad, who was Dad's high school friend, they were in Japan together. And then when they got out of the military together, Dad went on a mission. And what did Howard just work?
He must, I don't know what he
Well,
did.
Dad, and then after the military, Howard got baptized? Oh, you told me that.
I'm not sure whether it was after.
During your mission or when you came home from your mission?
I don't remember exactly.
Anyway, this Howard friend ended up joining the church. He's the only one in his family that got baptized. And then when Albert and the other Carroll boys went to Utah State to college, Howard didn't want to be left behind, so he went too.
So after my mission, Howard and I went to Utah State, and we went there all the time together.
And that's where Howard met his wife, and he got married in the temple.
Yes,
His wife was still in high school, wasn't she?
yes.
We met her. She's still alive. Anyway, so the Holmans and Dad have been friends.
I first met Howard in a speech class in high school.
Emmett High School.
In my last year of Emmett, only year of Emmett.
Yeah.
And we just got to be friends. He was what got me into the Army.
And so, did he serve in Japan or for military service? Or was he just doing the recruiting?
No, they were served together. They both were Army guys.
Oh, were you guys in Japan together?
Yes,
Okay.
went over together and home together.
They signed up together, basically.
Gotcha. So you did the same trainings together in Washington and then North Carolina and then California and off to Japan on your 8-day
And when
cruise.
he got in there, he became a sergeant giving orders to people. What had happened in Japan, they did 17 weeks of basic training over and over and over. And had I not gone into the office, well, what's interesting, I never did get past 7 weeks. I took 7 weeks of basic training, so there's 3 places I took 7 weeks and never did complete the 13 weeks of Army basic, which is required. So.
You took the first 17 weeks 3 times.
First 7 weeks.
7.
13. 3 times.
I should have had 13 to complete the program. When I was in Japan, I got called to the office.
Because Albert knew how to type.
In my Form 20, you list how fast you could type.
Oh, yeah.
In high school, I took 4 years of typing. In fact, I could out-type the girls. So it looked pretty good on my Form 20.
How fast could you type back then? Do you remember your words per minute?
At least 60, 62.
Yeah.
I could do 2 or 3 minutes without any mistakes.
That's impressive.
If you make mistakes, it would cut down it was over 60, but it wasn't the fastest, but it was still among the best.
Yeah.
So that got me my good Army job.
What was the last part?
Jeez.
It got him his good Army job.
Oh, gotcha, yeah, in the office.
Basically, he was a typist in the office.
But what's interesting, besides my regular assignments, I had officers coming to me to type up things for them, personal letters even,
Oh, yeah.
things like that. So they knew I could type and willing to do it. So
Good. What did Howard do?
he was a drill sergeant.
Oh, yeah.
I would never have been good at that anyway. So
Yeah, it takes a different person to be a drill sergeant.
And then later in life, Howard got into construction, and didn't he work for the church for a while, building chapels and
yeah,
stuff
he
in
built
California?
institutes and chapels, and actually in charge of the buildings he was building. And when he settled down in Orem, he became a building.
Was it building inspector for the city of Orem?
Yes.
Oh.
So he had a good job.
Howard's oldest daughter, Vanita, came. We were still in the old house, so it was under my 7th grade year. But she came for a week. She had grandparents in Emmett, Howard's parents, but they weren't members, so she spent time with us. And was it a couple weeks? How long was Vanita with us?
I don't remember.
Anyway, so we could take her to church. And she spent part of the 2 weeks or week with our family, and part with her non-member grandparents in Emmett. I just remember that. I remember she gave us a picnic basket as a thank you gift for hosting her, and Joanne would keep her knitting in that picnic basket.
Oh.
Do you remember that, David?
I remember the picnic basket.
Did you remember where it came from?
No, I had no clue. I remember we visited the Holmans in Southern California when we went to Disneyland, and they lived basically in the middle of an orange grove. And so I woke up the next morning and asked if I would get in trouble, if it would be alright if I picked an orange off the tree, and they laughed that you can eat all you want. And they showed us a cocktail tree that had been grafted in with oranges, grapefruit, lemons, and limes. Or at least 3 things on the tree growing, just branches that had been grafted in.
Yeah. So, do you remember going to Disneyland? Was that a family trip?
I remember Disneyland. I turned 8 years old at Disneyland, but I don't remember the cocktail tree. I don't remember visiting. I know we visited everybody we knew
In Southern
between California, Utah, and Idaho,
On that trip?
but I don't remember visiting the Holmans, but I remember visiting other people.
Would have been that trip we visited Francis Bingham and his wife? The one that lived in Morgan?
No, because I was like a toddler in those pictures.
Okay.
A different trip.
Yeah, I turned 8 years old on that trip. David was 12. David won the trip from selling subscriptions to the Messenger Index, our weekly town paper. And so we spent 2 weeks. It was driving to Utah, spent a couple days in Disneyland, and saw all the sights in California. I remember how nervous Mom and Dad was driving in California.
What were you nervous about?
And all that traffic.
Yeah.
I can't remember how old we were when we visited Tijuana. But we
It was that trip.
That trip, we parked in the States, walked over into Tijuana,
We walked across the border.
and some guy had this like giant overcoat, like a London fog coat, little pockets or space. They had like maybe 100 watches on him inside his overcoat.
It's like in the movies.
And he tried to sell one to Grandpa, and Grandpa figured they were stolen, and he refused to buy one. The guy kept dropping her price, Said, "Mister, I give you a watch for free. I'm a good salesman. I give you one for free." And Grandpa wouldn't take it for free. And then Mom had bought some kind of a straw hat that had little, kind of little strings going down, maybe half an inch or an inch, and then like a grape-sized ball on it all the way around. And when you came back into the States, there was 2 lines, one for gringos and one for the Mexicans. And she was in the gringo line. I think the guy must have been joking with her. "Lady, you need to get in the Mexican line."
Because she was wearing a Mexican hat.
She got all excited.
We only spent a couple hours. Mom didn't dare drive in Tijuana because she was afraid that someone would make us get her in a wreck and put us in jail. She was very, very... But
Very
we
cautious.
walked across. It was like, I remember, it was a dump. We walked across a bridge and there was a dump and there was a donkey that had stripes painted on to look like a zebra eating the garbage in the dump.
No way.
That's how we got into Tijuana, was walking over a bridge over a dump.
Grandpa, do you remember that?
Do you remember that, Albert? Do you, David?
Oh yes, I remember the watch salesman and Mom being told to get in the Mexican line.
Grandpa, do you have any other memories of going to Tijuana on your
No.
short trip there?
Jolene had to stay home, didn't she? She was a baby.
I think so.
I think Jolene had to stay home because she was a baby. And then when Jolene was 12, she and Mom won the contest again, driving around town all over the county, selling subscriptions to the weekly newspaper, and Jolene won the same trip when she was 12 years old. And we went to Disneyland again a second time with her.
We didn't do that until we moved down here.
But we didn't take the trip till we moved down here? She won the trip. She was in ninth grade when she left.
We won three times to Disney.
3 times? I only knew 2 times. Who else won?
I don't remember.
Was it James?
I know one time we thought maybe it'd be too late to take advantage of the...
To cash in the prize?
We'd been down here and they accepted it on the other end. So.
I thought once we went to California with Jolene. We did Disneyland with Jolene because she was... Maybe David was gone to college or something, or a mission. I remember going twice to Disneyland from Idaho.
Yeah.
So, Dad, working with your brothers, how harmonious or how difficult was that? Being in a business with, there were 4 brothers and Grandpa Rulin. The brothers were Albert, Donald, Clarence, and Charlie. And the 4 brothers started out with a, what was your first farming adventures? Did you have cows at first or chickens right off?
Started cows, then went into chickens. We got the routes to do the chickens, and we had close to 20,000 chickens we had at one time. That seemed too high.
There was a whole bunch of chicken coops.
Anyway, we ended up buying truckloads of eggs at the end, these huge trucks, and we would run them through our...
Oh, we had to clean them and grade them, and
Probably not clean them, but just repackage them into our containers.
we packaged them into our containers.
Candled them to make sure they were good.
We candled them.
We went over conveyor.
Candling was this black curtain with lights, and you'd have to sit and watch on a conveyor belt, 1 egg at a time. They would look at them to make sure they were okay.
Make sure there's no blood.
No blood spots. I was just a young child when we had that egg, and the conveyor belt would go down and it would measure the egg. I don't know if it was by size or by weight, but there were small, medium, and large eggs, and it would go, and this machine would make the eggs go small, medium, or large, and then would package them in the dozen packages in the different sizes.
And so these eggs were from your 20,000 chickens.
Our 20,000 chickens, and then at the end, they found it was cheaper to buy eggs from California and ship them up than it was for us to have our own chickens. And I have a memory as a school-age child. It was at night, because at night the chickens were roost. It's when they were going to butcher all the chickens. And at night we grabbed the chickens, their legs while they were roosting, and shoved them in these cages. And then they took this truckload of chickens, several different nights, over to either Nampa or Caldwell, where they had they canned them up. We had canned chickens, so we ate those chickens. Do you remember that?
And we also sold a lot of them of that.
Sold a lot of them live or dead?
Well, I think when we had all the chickens, we had a lot of calls when they quit laying.
Remember, sometimes they'd have a sale. You buy 2 dozen eggs, you get a free stewing hen.
Oh, really?
So they got to catch one and hand it to the
So
people.
they sold. Grandma Elsie had a little store out in the shop behind her back door. Across her backyard was a little shop, and she would sell eggs and milk. People would come in, but so you would also ship the eggs all over. Did you? I don't remember. I remember driving milk to Boise, but I don't remember you driving eggs anywhere.
I didn't. That was Charles' job to deliver the eggs.
Where he would deliver it to all the stores around?
Up to McCall and had that route up there.
Boise.
Boise and McCall, he'd deliver eggs to all the
Grocery stores.
restaurants.
So it was determined that it was cheaper just to buy the eggs, not to have the chickens. So that's when you slaughter the chickens and sold those off.
And then we had all these chicken coops made out of wood. I remember when they built them, the members were laughing, saying, "Oh, you're building housing," because they look like ranch houses. You're building housing for the 12 tribes of Israel. We're going to come out of the north and come live in these ranch houses. Do you remember that, David?
No.
Anyway, they were painted white. They were made out of wood, sawdust. They weren't like in cages like they are now. They were like these different coops.
This is John.
Is it?
Starts singing just as soon as you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jonathan. Happy birthday to you.
Woo!
Thank you.
Jonathan, how young are you? How young are you?
27.
I am 27 years young.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Carol Ann turns 27 in a couple months, too.
Yeah, well, so for me, it's my golden year.
Oh, because it's
27 on the 27th.
nice.
Oh, it's your magical golden,
golden
year.
Yep.
Why? I
Are
haven't.
you and Jim, and is that Eric as well?
It is.
You guys are still down there?
Yeah, so I was at Lake Powell for the week. Just got back last night, and so my flight is out tonight at 8:30.
Wow, way to go.
I know.
You're here.
And I fly out at 5.
Huh?
I fly out at 5. I've been here a whole week.
Okay.
We've
You guys
declared.
still in Arizona heat?
Yeah, we love the Arizona heat.
Janet's been decluttering our house. It's sure been good to get rid of things that we don't use.
I am making Albert and David so nervous of me throwing and getting things put away. The carport's clean.
Have either of you seen the movie Grumpy Old Men?
It's been a long time. Should I see it again?
I know. Yeah, I mean, it's not that they're grumpy, but Dad and Grandpa could sure use a lady's touch decluttering all the stuff we've collected, I guess.
Yeah.
McKaylee and Holly were out last night. Some months ago, I tied a rope around Paley so she would have a tiger tail. And so McKaylee and Holly decided they wanted to go around with tiger tails. So I had a rope tied around each of their waists. And love you, Juan.
Thanks, love you guys, and it's good to talk to Eric and Janet.
Okay,
Yeah,
bye-bye.
you too.
Bye.
Bye. Nice having you call back.
Yeah.
We knew I had called. So they may not even have been up by 9 o'clock.
Oh, probably not.
Well, if they'd have late church.
Yeah, they have noon church, and yeah.
I didn't remember the church. I thought maybe they're going to a regular church, aren't
Well, just a regular
A
ward.
family ward, not a.
Not even like
Not a
stu-
married
not-
student
not a
ward.
student married. And they just got a call about a week or so ago to work in the primary tag team teach.
How fun.
They're going to be 8-year-olds.
That's a fun age.
That is funny. It's very. Yeah.
Just baptized.
Did you turn your recorder off?
I turned it off. I turned it back on. So I paused it during the middle of the conversation with Jonathan. I want to catch the singing part. So let's see, where were we?
First we were, you
I think
had
you're
a,
asking
you
about-
had a small dairy, and then we were talking about the poultry.
I guess that was technically the dynamic.
Going through the dejunking I did this weekend, I went through one of David's treasure boxes, and he had a bunch of copies of his autobiography that he wrote in the 8th grade.
Your autobiography?
And I learned that I know the property that was called the Lower 40, that they would herd the cows to and from for twice a day milking from the Lower 40. It was a good half mile or 3/4 of a mile, wasn't it, from the lower?
Kitty corner of our property.
Half a mile maybe?
At least half a mile.
At least
long.
half a mile. They would herd, they pastured the dairy cows, and then they would herd them to get milk. How many cows did you have? How many did you? And that was the old barn where they would put these electric vehicles on. You have to. Did you sit on a stool and have to hook up these milkers? You only, how many did you have at one time? 3? I remember watching you milk cows in the old barn.
And the cows were stanchioned while they were being milked, and when they were just about being through milked, would get on their backs and would ride them as they walked out of the barn, and then would kind of hang on to the top of the doorway and slide off of them until we weren't riding them out in the open corral. The old ones that would let us do it.
Yeah.
But anyway, we started out when we bought the farm. I think the owner only had 15 Jersey cows, and we purchased another Jersey herd of about 10. And it's just hard to raise Jersey calves and build. We wanted to build up so all 4 of us, brothers and Dad, would have an income. So we just gradually built up more and more with the dairy cows. We switched from Jerseys to Holsteins. At one time we bought from Wisconsin 100 very young baby calves, and then we bought later 100 or so springers. And
Are springers already bred?
they were about ready to have a calf.
Oh, a springer is a pregnant cow.
But anyway, we got built up, I would guess, 300, be a little high number.
I think we had at one time 350 in the milking string. Plus,
350 milking cows.
plus some in dry cows.
That doesn't count the dry cows and the pregnant cows.
Nor the calf we were raising up.
Or the calves.
Anyway, we ended up early building a new dairy barn on the 40 that Joanne and I lived on, which made it possible to milk numerous more cows. But anyway, in addition to the dairy, and we quite quickly went into the poultry business also to help provide for the 4 sons and Dad income.
Now, Grandpa Albert got training to do artificial insemination for the cows. How early on did you do that? I always remembered you doing it. I don't remember. Did you do it before David was born, or?
It would have been a little later, I'm sure.
How long did you have to go for training?
I went up to Moscow, Idaho. I was going to work for Cache Valley Breeding, and one of their representatives drove me up back. But anyway, I had just a week's training is all I needed to artificially inseminate cows. It would have been somewhat later. And then later on, all of Gem County, I do the breeding for the dairymen that wanted our services in the Gem County, and some of them were quite long trips.
I remember as a young, maybe it was preschool, going with my dad as he'd drive all over the county, and the farmers would corral up their cows that they wanted bred, and Dad would breed. I just remember it was, it's about a yard, smaller than a yard, bigger than a breadbasket, cylinder stainless steel tank that had dry ice in it. And they had these long, maybe foot long.
Had liquid nitrogen.
Oh, liquid nitrogen
Yeah,
to keep it cold.
Earlier we had just ice.
Oh, was it? Okay.
And then we went to liquid nitrogen.
So the cylinder tank that you could carry around if you're a strong man, and they had little glass vials on long sticks, metal sticks inside this nitrogen tank, and the farmer would look at the book and see what bull they wanted their cow to be bred to, and would they order ahead of time?
They could, but they wouldn't. We carried quite a variety.
So the inventory, the bull semen was I just remember there was a book, and they could. It was a picture book. It had a picture of the bull,
Like a mail order bride. Mail
right?
order
Of
groom.
the sperm semen, whatever, in these little vials. Anyway, that's what I grew up driving around with my dad all over the county.
That cylinder tank she talked about sit in the vehicle is too heavy to carry around. It just sitting in.
Oh, it sat in the
in their guilt of that to pick out liquid nitrogen.
That's so funny. That's like
space age stuff.
no, I mean it's like sperm donors today for human beings. Like take out the book of what kind of man do you want your
Exactly. What kind of
it's
bull?
Like
Sitting for
quite
cows.
often, if it was going to be the cow's first calf, they would select a bull that was known to throw a fairly small calf. So it'd be easier on the first birth experience of the cow.
Oh wow.
If
So
not,
that
it's
might have been a consideration.
milk high fat or low fat milk, you could choose. Volume of milk.
What was the success rate on that?
What was the pregnancy success rate?
I don't know, but it's
Pretty good.
pretty good.
Yeah.
I didn't have to pay for the semen until I used it. And if they paid for the first one, I think it was $7.50. And after that, they were free if we had to rebreed them.
Okay.
And so I just had to pay the one time. So I had quite an inventory, but I didn't pay for it until I used it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So with me growing up, we had all those cows, but we never had bulls. When the baby calves were born, if they were bulls, they went up to Grandma Elsie and Rulin's house, and we fed them. Well, first you milk fed them, and then until they got like a truck full or a little corral full, and they'd truck them off and would sell all the little bull calves.
At times we'd raise them out to sell them as young beef animals, but we sold a lot of day-old calves to the sale yard.
I remember as a very young child that we did have some bulls. We'd come home from church, the bull would be loose in the yard, so Grandpa Albert would grab a pitchfork and try to chase it back into the corral.
See, I don't remember any full-size bulls.
But I didn't enjoy working about bulls. I mean, they're dangerous, and I think I was scared of them.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So you had the poultry side and the dairy side at the same time.
yes.
The dairy, the Albert and Joanne Carroll family lived where the dairy was. The poultry was up by Rulin and Elsie's property, and Don's house was right next to the poultry, Grandma and Grandpa Elsie and Rulin's house.
Okay.
So it was like a half a mile walk or a 3/4 mile walk
So that.
from our house, Albert and Joanne's house, to Grandma and Grandpa and Don and Rita's house was half a mile, 3/4 mile. Couple farmhouses between there.
But quite early on the farm, we started jugging our milk and selling it as raw milk. We did deliveries to the stores, and then Metal Gold in Boise, we made weekly or 2 weeks, twice a week.
It was twice a week.
Delivered.
So as a teenager, we delivered milk. Dad would deliver milk gallons to Boise. So I would go with him often because I would go shopping in downtown Boise while he did the delivery, and he took his time so I could do some more shopping. When I found fashion, I would hitch a ride on the milk truck to Boise. Do you remember that, Dad?
And in Emmett, we had Albertsons and another store.
We had Shamrock, Albertsons, and Foodland
We delivered milk to.
that we delivered gallons to, and all the rest of the milk. And we sold some at the little store at Grandma Elsie's
We
house.
sold quite a bit. People would come to the farm and pick up milk too, raw milk, eggs.
See, Grandma Elsie had this till, and she'd bring it in the house every night. We never locked anything. And I remember when it was our birthday, she'd say, go get $1 out of the till, and we'd get our $1. But sometimes we were evil and wicked, and we would steal quarters and ride our bikes to the store a couple miles away and buy candy bars and soda pop. That was my life of crime.
Stealing from your grandma.
Also, my dad had these tumblers with his loose change in, and we'd steal money from there and buy our candy bars and soda pop. We didn't do it every day. It was a long bicycle ride.
Yeah, quite a trek to the store.
Yeah,
It was like
think
a
ahead when you want to steal.
And there were two sets of heels up and down. It was work. So we didn't do it a lot.
I think it was the summer between 4th and 5th grade. My cousin Rex, Uncle Don's son, and I were playing with some boards and planks, just kind of nailing them together. And Uncle, in the pasture above Rulin and Elsie's place, Uncle Don came over and showed us how that if you had a bottom plate and a top plate, and boards nailed in between, you could make a floor. Same thing for the walls and same things for the roof. So we built a 2-story playhouse.
Well, the second story was like 2.5 feet tall. It was a loft.
We roofed it with wood and waxed cardboard. And then anyway, probably towards the end of our 5th grade year, we invited a bunch of our friends. And so there's 13 of us that went from Brick Elementary School to Shamrock Market. We bought some candy bars and soda pop and rode our bicycles to the clubhouse above the grandparents' place. And about dark, we were really hungry. And we could have gone down and Grandma Elsie would have fixed anything for us, but we were ornery. And we stole a frozen stewing hen out of her freezer, out of the outbuilding in a freezer there. Took it up there, poked some kind of a metal rod through it, got a fire going, and proceeded to rotisserie cook this frozen
Just like on
hen.
TV.
And basically it'd be burnt on the outside and would peel it off where it had melted raw on the inside against the frozen flesh. So it was a combination of burnt and raw flesh of this hen, and that was our supper for that night.
And then after they played with it, the David and the older Rex and their friends, they lost interest in that fort, and they were pasturing some calves there, and that kind of, we called it the wood pile. It was in the back of Elsie and Rulin's house. That's where they would, if they tore down a building, of course they would recycle all the wood, and there'd be piles of wood, and there were a bunch of old junk cars, junk cars and junk farm equipment. It was kind of like the trash heap where we built this clubhouse, but they pastured some calves there, and they used that as the calf pen. And then the cousins my age, a year or so later, we cleaned out all the calf poop. I don't know how, we shoveled it out, and then we got water and we washed it out. And so we used it as a clubhouse. And then we had a couple sleepovers in it. It was, how big do you think it was? 5 by 8?
Yeah, something like that.
And a ladder up to the second floor loft was like 2 or 3 feet high. Anyway, so we had a fun summer playing in that. But I remember we had to clean out all the calf poop. And memories, okay. Do you remember that, Dad, at all, Albert?
Vaguely.
I remember when my cousins, and friends my age, or the Meyer kids, we too got on our bikes and rode 2 miles to the store, up and down 2 sets of hills. But I remember we bought hot dogs. We didn't just buy candy and pop, but we bought hot dogs and marshmallows. And then behind Rulin and Elsie's house was this trash heap, and we built a fire where they built fires. And Grandpa Rulin decided, this is like, Grandpa Rulin was a real worker. He didn't really play with us as teenagers or elementary age kids. But I remember he got out his Dutch oven, and he got some potatoes out of the potato cellar, and he took our hot dogs and cut them up and made us a Dutch oven potato and hot dog treat. And anyway, that was a fun memory because it was something fun Grandpa Rulin did with us that I remember.
Grandpa Rulin would take time off to go fishing, so he would take us older grandkids fishing with him, and it was usually stream fishing. If us younger kids weren't catching very much fish, we'd get bored and just play around and wait for him to get finished fishing. But he would fish the whole day, even though the fishing wasn't great. He made a day of it. Or one time we're going downstream and Steve had a collared short sleeve shirt and he went under this log and some air kind of in a pocket of the upper part of the shirt, and we got kind of snagged on a tree branch across the creek, and the stream was fast enough. It was kind of pushing him down so he couldn't back up to unhook himself, and I was right behind him and kind of unsnagged it so he didn't die. He wouldn't have been snagged for very long, just a moment or just a few seconds, but enough to remember, I guess.
Yeah.
I remember Grandpa Brulin and a bunch of the uncles and my dad and my brothers were going on an overnight camp-out fishing trip. And it was boys only. And I was so mad because I couldn't go too. Because I think James went, but I couldn't go because I was a girl. And I was giving them the riot rack. And, oh, but Janet, we're not going to even have plates. We're going to eat our food on slices of bread. You won't like it. We'll be roughing it. And as much as I cried and hollered, I didn't get to go. They said they run around naked. They didn't want to have a girl come because then they couldn't run around naked. Finally, I said, okay, and I didn't press it any further.
Yeah, I remember on several occasions, Uncle Clarence would cook potatoes and hamburger in a Dutch oven, and if we caught some fish, they'd kind of steam the fish on top of the pile of potatoes and hamburger. But that's the way they'd serve it. Just get out a loaf of bread and hand each person a slice and take a spatula and dish out some potatoes and hamburger, put it on top of your slice of bread as you went by the Dutch oven.
So they did use plates. They were true on that one. Did you guys run around naked?
No.
Did you go did they go skinny dipping? They wanted to go skinny dipping.
No.
Did you sleep in tents or did you sleep under the stars?
I don't remember.
What did they do, Albert?
Probably both. I would think morning, not tents early on.
So, but Albert would take our family on camping trips, fishing trips. Our stake bought some property on the Cascade Lake, the reservoir, and there was nobody had property right on the beach, but we were right next to the easement. And I remember when that church property, all it had was a hand pump, an electric socket, and an outhouse. And I remember we went camping with an electric fry pan one time because that was an improved campsite because it had an electric plug. But I remember going to like Seichen and...
That's where the best fishing was.
Was Seichen?
Is that in your Cascade?
No, Seichen is closer. Dad and I went there last 4th of July weekend. It's real pretty. We hiked around Seichen. Dave and I went there for 4th of July weekend, and it's at the very tip top of Gem County. It's kind of parallel to Cougar Mountain Lodge. What's it called? Smith's Ferry on the way up to Cascade, way up to McCall.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
You just west of that is a mountain, and you go over that mountain, and there's a little reservoir, Seichen. It's really pretty in the pines.
I gotta sneak off
To get ready for church.
Church is at 12:30. Okay.
Yeah, they were cheerleading.
My cheerleader. I was a cheerleader. Girls' sports weren't that big when I grew up, but it's like the whole town came out for the boys' football games and the basketball games, and I mean it was the whole town would come out. And I was a cheerleader at Park. I went to a country middle school. 7th grade had a basketball team where we went to town, and I was a cheerleader then. And then my 8th grade year, I went to town junior high and tried out for cheerleader. And the town girls, there was a town elementary and then the other elementaries were out in the country. And when the country girls came to town, that all of us made cheerleader and none of the town girls made cheerleader.
Oh, really?
And so the town girls didn't like us very well. But I did cheerleading from 7th grade to 12th grade. And that was my major activity in high school. And I was a good cheerleader. I think I don't sing well now because I have nodules on my vocal cords because I could yell loud at the games. So I sacrificed my voice for
High school glory.
For high school glory. We had a terrible football team. We never won football, but we had a decent basketball team growing up in my years.
Gotcha. Grandpa, did you go to these
We were the
football-
Emmett Huskies. I remember as a child going to town basketball games at the high school. Dad would buy family passes, and I would sit in the adult section with my dad and my mom. Mom would go too sometimes, wouldn't she? Mom and Dad. It was like a town event. You see all the community there, going to high school games so Albert could watch the boys.
Was Uncle Mike Bingham played on the basketball?
Oh yeah, my Uncle Mike and Mark, or just Mike?
I remember Mike playing. I don't know about.
We watched Uncle Mike Bingham play basketball, and the other Mormon boys from the 2 wards.
They called him Bull Bingham.
Bull Bingham was Mike Bingham.
Yep.
Bull Bingham.
Because Mike was he was a sturdy guy. Mark was more slim, but Uncle Mike was thicker. I don't remember watching him play, but
One year Mike's team went to state,
Mike's.
and I remember listening to it on the radio. State championship game.
Is that when you started going to town games when Uncle Mike was playing?
It could have been more reason.
So that was your younger brother.
No, it's Joanne's. Uncle Mike,
Oh.
Mike Bingham.
Bingham, gotcha.
Bingham, yeah. It was Joanne's younger brother, Mike. Uncle Mike.
Gotcha. So your mom, so Joanne's family moved to Emmett, or they were already there?
Okay, Joanne's family.
Because I thought they were from like Montana, and you met at Utah State, and then you brought her to Emmett.
No. The story is, Joanne was born in Montana. Grandpa Golden and Lenore. Grandpa Golden was an irrigation specialist for the county extension
For the college.
through a college, through the land grant college.
This is Joanne's dad.
Yes, Joanne's dad is Golden Bingham.
Gotcha.
Joanne, didn't he start getting depressed in Montana? Anyway, when Joanne, they had 9 living children. And so when it was getting college age, they decided to move to Logan, to a college town where there were more Mormons to date and a college town. And when Joanne was in her first or second year of college, they moved. Golden and Lenore Bingham moved to Emmett. Grandpa Golden was severely depressed, and they thought working on their cousin's farm in Emmett would give him an occupation and help his depression.
Okay.
And so when Joanne was in college, her family moved to Idaho. So when she wanted to go home for Christmas, she found out that the Carroll boys were at Utah State. And so Joanne was going to try to find the Carroll boys to catch a ride. And lo and behold, they were all in the same institute class. And so when they called roll, she kind of saw who the Carroll boys were. And then the next day, did she come sit by you? They sat and the next day, another day, she sat behind them and tapped them on the shoulder and introduced herself and asked for a ride to Emmett.
Gotcha.
And that's how Albert and Joanne met. Did you start dating right off from that?
Not seriously, no.
No, so that's how Albert and Joanne met.
They met.
How much longer did it take for you to start dating?
I don't remember. She claimed I started taking care of her pretty early.
Okay. So that next semester, did you see each other? Anyway, I don't know.
That's when we went back to school. She was living in the dorm. I was dating real seriously. Well, because I would go up there every night. And on the weekends, the cafeteria was not open, so I would take food up, not for her and some of her friends quite regularly, weekends. But that's how I really got seriously dating. They used to have to kick me out at dinner every night at 10 in dorm clothes.
Okay.
So you hung out with Joanne and her roommates at her dorm.
Until they kicked you out at 10. It's like BYU. Curfews. Okay.
Going to college, I lived in town. It was probably a mile walk to the college, but I would leave early in the morning, around 7, and didn't come back to my apartment until 10 o'clock. I did all my studying on campus, either at the main library or at the Institute library. Had my bookcase for books and carried all my books with me. So I did zero studying in my apartment.
Did your brothers and Howard Holman live in the same apartment as you?
Howard Holman had in the same house a year or two. My brothers never did live close. In fact, they went to school some after I left too. Anyway, I never did live with any of my brothers. And actually I had a little apartment of my own in that house, a very small, just room for beds about all.
So if Joanne was catching a ride home for Christmas, and were you married that next September?
I would guess.
We're guessing that's the timeline. And then after you got married, did you go back to Logan for your senior year?
I went.
How many years did you go married?
I went back 2 semesters. 2 semesters.
You went to college 2 semesters as a married man.
I left in March. I actually had 4 semesters at Utah State.
Oh, they were quarters.
Quarters.
Utah State was quarters.
So I had 2 quarters.
2 quarters as a married man, and then you came back to Emmett?
And I finished in March. I had to go back in May to my graduation. Joanne was too close to giving birth to David, so my mother went with me to my graduation.
Oh.
Joanne never did.
Because that was May, and David was born in June.
On your birthday.
No, June 14th.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so you got married in September. You went to Utah State for 2 quarters as a married man. Finished in March. Came back to Idaho. And then you went back in May to walk during the ceremony.
Yes.
But Joanne, your wife Joanne, did not go to the graduation. She was pregnant. She was 8 months pregnant with David.
Yes.
So Elsie went back with you. Did Rulon go to your graduation too?
No. Just my mother.
So it was just you and Elsie? Took a car ride and you walked.
Graduation.
And what's interesting, at graduation, at the same ceremony, President McKay's wife was receiving an honorary degree. So after the ceremony was over, it was in the field house. We were walking around, mingling around, and he ran into me, President McKay.
Was he the prophet at that time?
He stopped and wished me well. All I remember is he's a huge man compared to me.
Oh, really? He's a tall guy.
So I got to shake his hand at that point.
So was your mom excited? You were the firstborn getting his college degree. Did Elsie and Rulon didn't get college degrees, did they?
My dad went to college. He's a couple years. I don't think he ever got a degree.
Where did Grandpa Rulon go to college?
Utah State.
Utah State from Orderville? Mm-hmm. He went clear up to Logan.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long drive.
Those days.
So he took several years.
I don't know, at least 2 years.
2 years of college at Utah.
It was there that he was taking ROTC, and they called, that's when World War started.
So so Rulin was taking ROTC at Utah State in Logan, and that's when World War I started.
Yes, and they drafted everybody that was taking military training. He'd all signed up already to leave to go overseas, and the war ended. That's how close he got to having to active duty. In
So
the war.
Grandpa Rulin was in boot camp when World War I was over.
And that's why if you call ROTC. But
ROTC.
yes.
So
Okay. So they drafted him late in the
late in World War I, but the war was over and he never had to go to battle.
Yeah.
Did he go anywhere?
No.
So he said,
He never did leave the Logan. I mean, to go.
So it was ROTC training at Utah State in Logan.
Yes.
that's the extent of his military time.
Experience.
That's how close to taking ROTC almost got me into Korean War too, because I did take ROTC every day. They paid $1 a day if you took ROTC, and when I graduated, I was a second lieutenant, and that nearly all of them were going into the military that graduated. I mean, had to go, and I just told them I was needed on the farm. I had brothers in military, brothers going to school, and I was needed back on the farm. So they said I wouldn't have to go if I paid them back that $1 a day. They had paid me $300.
Oh,
And luckily I had saved it. I had the money, but I didn't have to pay back the money they gave me when I went to summer camp in Virginia.
so you went to summer camp in Virginia for ROTC while you were in college.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's how close I have it. Went twice getting into the Korean War. Once because I didn't sign up for reserve, and I was able to buy myself out of the
ROTC.
ROTC.
That's interesting that they paid you, but then you're like first to get drafted, but you...
But then you become an officer. You're not.
If I'd have gone to war, I'd have been a second lieutenant.
Is that pretty high?
Well, it's
It's better than a
officer.
sign up.
Yeah, better than...
Than a, what is a private? What are the
Well, I
a
don't
starting Army
know.
guy?
There's several up in the... to be an officer was much higher ranking than any of the
Yeah.
others leading up to an officer. Now, the second lieutenant was the lowest officer.
Lowest officer, okay. So I know like ROTC, you get trained to be an officer. And you get higher pay and higher standing if you graduate ROTC and you want to enlist, or you're commissioned, I guess they call it.
But luckily they let me buy myself out.
So twice Albert almost had to be in the Korean War.
Yeah, it's a good thing that you didn't sign up for the reserves and kept your $300.
To buy out of
which is a lot of money.
back then, to buy himself out of the ROTC commitment.
But luckily I had saved every penny of it.
Yeah.
So I had it. If I hadn't saved it, I don't know what I'd have done.
Yeah.
But Howard Holman signed up for the idea, but he was actually called to go to the reserve, but because he had an operation about that time, he never did have to go. His operation saved him from going into the Korea.
Did you have a lot of friends die in the Korean War?
I knew some that I knew in Japan did die, yes. How I learned about them, I don't know.
Yeah.
See, I have often felt blessed because Grandpa Rulin didn't have to serve in the Army. World War I. Dad didn't have to do World War II.
Active.
Active.
Active, yeah.
I mean, in the battles.
Yeah, not, yeah, frontline
In the
stuff.
battlefield. And so Dad missed World War II and the Korean. My husband didn't have to be in military, and so far none of my sons have had
You've
to
been real
be
fortunate.
soldiers in active Army.
I don't know how those that were in active duty, how they went
So
to
we
this.
live.
Yeah, we lived.
We lived.
So you had brothers that served in active duty, and like...
Clarence was 2 years in Okinawa, and Donald was in, I think, 7, 9 months in Eastern United States and with his second lieutenant.
Did Clarence see active battles? So Donald and Clarence
We're military.
were military but did not do active battles. Administrative or training.
Well, they might have been over. They'd have been over by then.
Gotcha. But they were also in the military.
Yeah, but Clarence spent 2 years
Gotcha.
in Okinawa.
Did Donald go? Yeah, Donald went on a mission to Rhode Island, but Clarence didn't go on a mission because he had 2 years in military,
And he got married early.
and then he married young. Aunt Jane was between her junior and senior year when she got married in the triple wedding ceremony. So when they went to school after the triple wedding ceremony, all the boys went back to Utah State to school. Aunt Jane went and finished her high school,
As she should.
as she should.
Were there many married people in high school? Back then.
Probably more so than now because of the army days.
Gotcha. So what was it like working with your brothers? I think Mommy asked that before the phone rang. Because I know, like, my mom, from what I hear, like, having a lot of cousins her age, she enjoyed that, and Emmett, having a lot of cousins her age. But what was it like working with your brothers and Emmett and your father?
It worked very smoothly. I don't remember any big disagreements.
Okay.
It worked very well, but having so many cousins, because all 4 brothers living in Emmett, they had a lot of children, so there's a lot of cousins.
Yeah.
A lot of farm workers.
Yeah.
I remember my brother Steve. My brother Steve was a little more social at school than my brother David. And they had these Friday night dances in town at an old furniture store called Case Furniture. It wasn't a furniture store anymore, but it was this big building where they would have bands and have dances. Back then they had live bands.
At the dances?
At dances. I mean, we didn't have good recording of stuff.
Yeah.
But the uncles would specifically assign him to milk cows Saturday mornings. He didn't know this till later. So he was to make him not want to stay up late at the dance, or he'd go to the dance and leave early. So he'd go to bed. So he would have to wake up the next morning to milk cows. So he didn't go out. Like 4 a.m. they'd get up and milk cows.
Oh.
So that kept my social brother from hanging out with kids and drinking beer and getting into trouble. And he found out later it was on purpose.
Gotcha. That's a good story. So, Grandpa, do you have any stories about my mom growing up? Anything like vivid, like accomplishments, or when she was really bad, you had to give her a few spankings and stuff?
Like I said, that would be the hardest subject for me to talk about. I would remember anything about my kids when they were early, 15, 18 years old. All I remember is her cheerleading experience.
Yeah.
She has a good girlfriend she's quite close to, didn't you? Your friend, cheerleading. Buddies were good girls, friends of yours. This one is Sweet.
Yeah, Dion from Sweet Montour.
Oh yeah, I know Dion.
I remember that, because Dad went to all the high school games. My brother Steve was on varsity basketball when I was a JV cheerleader, and the games were back to back.
Yeah.
And then Dad would, when I was in high school, Dad would go to the high school games where I cheerleaded. I mean, he wouldn't go to like my 7th, 8th, 9th. Well, 9th was JV too. I was JV cheerleader in 9th grade.
Oh wow.
So during my high school years, my dad would go to the games and watch me cheerlead, but he was really watching the basketball games.
Yeah.
What's interesting, probably that carried on, but Allison, she started in junior high in sports through 2 years of college before she played 2 years in Missouri. David and I think, have attended nearly every game she was in, Joanne and David and I.
So you went to cousin Allison's volleyball games.
Volleyball and
Your
basketball.
cousin.
Yeah, my cousin Allison.
She's a basketball and volleyball.
She was a basketball and volleyball superstar.
In college too?
Even at college, she made a record at Gilbert Community. I don't know what in now, but then to her last 2 years, she got invited to play for a team in Missouri.
Wow.
She was an excellent hockey,
Yeah.
both basketball and volleyball. She was a starter, played nearly all the time.
Yeah.
That makes it more interesting when they play all the time.
Yeah, definitely.
One game in her last year, she didn't go out for volleyball. She had an excellent volleyball and an excellent coach, but for some reason her and her friend got disliking her coach. So she purposely left the volleyball, which they thoroughly missed her, and played basketball. In her senior year, she was the best in volleyball too, and basketball just as good. But it was one postseason game. I think with 2 minutes to go, Gilbert was behind. He was playing Red Mountain, was behind 7 points.
Mm-hmm.
And Allison made some key shots, got fouled, and made all her free throws. So in that 2 minutes, Allison, I think, was the only one that scored. She'd had to have scored 8 points.
Oh yeah?
And after the game was over, the coach of the basketball team at Scottsdale Community College, which is the most popular colleges, community colleges, from down wanted to play basketball for the Scottsdale Community College, but she refused. So,
Huh.
but I just remember that quite well.
Yeah. Pivotal game.
But to do so well in those 2 minutes, making 2 pointers and 3 or 4 foul shots, made all of them.
Yeah.
So they end up winning by 1 point.
Oh wow.
Postseason game. But she was fun to watch. She was good enough. But volleyball, I think every shot she made and every time she hit the ball over the net is almost me doing it too.
Yeah.
But she was good.
Well, that's great. I think that's something that I, just is different, just missed out on. Is that because you live just down the street from, David and his kids, and so they're really close to you.
Yes, being close, just 2 houses down.
2 houses across the, down the street and 2 houses down.
Off the other side of the street.
And so yeah, so like they got to grow up with you and them, coming over and you going to their sporting events. So
Yeah, real close to David's children.
yeah. Jolene. Go.
I love Albert Carroll and Joanne Carroll and my grandparents. They gave me a great heritage. Hugs and kisses. They're good guardian angels on the other side.
And I love our children twice that, so we really love them.
Awesome. Thanks, Grandpa.
If your kids growing up, first 12 years on the farm, I had about 16 hours a day.
Oh wow.
Trying to
So
build
we
up,
would have to go out and find him and hang out with him if we wanted to
So we-
spend time with him.
try and build up so all of us could come home to work on the farm. When David and Rex were around 12, that reduced the hours quite a bit because they did quite a bit of work.
Yeah.
Are you going to go to 12:30 separate meeting?
Yeah.
Are you going to do the other meetings? I think I'll come home.
I'll come home too.
Okay, we'll do sacrament meeting with you.
Yeah. Sounds good.